And hello, everybody. Have you ever thought about being an entrepreneur? I know for me, one of the greatest things is working for myself. I mean, I've enjoyed the years of working for others, the discipline, the leadership, that there's really something very special about working for yourself. But how do you overcome challenges? How do you overcome the things that are thrown in front of you? Because being an entrepreneur can be one of the toughest jobs. I'm bringing in Dr. Summer Watson. She's been on the show numerous times. She's a former psychologist. She runs Core Women, and she's a life coach, an author, and so much more from the Washington, D.C. area. Hello, Summer.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
You're always out there. I'm good. You're always out there advocating for women and helping to empower them. Why is that so important today with the entrepreneurship today we have?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors that play into my story. And I'm going to start off with just explaining, about my story, who I am, kind of the transition I went through, and maybe this will speak to other women out there, or other men and women out there for that matter. But my story isn't about really bouncing back. And I want to make this really clear to who I was before. It's about learning how to really adapt, transition, and really build forward. And that's something that was learned by me over time. It didn't come necessarily naturally, but I do think there was an innate ability within me to survive, right? To go forward, to move forward. So my grandmother used to say, honey, she'd just say, actually, she'd say, she was from Oklahoma, and she said, darling, you're a champ. And I used to love it when she'd say, darling. She said, you're a champ. You always get back up no matter what it is, and you transition forward, right? You transition well. And that always stuck with me, that she saw me as somebody who had hope, who had courage, who would get back up. And that makes a difference when you have people in your life that see you as somebody who continues on, who gets back up. And to me, that helped me because I was like, wow, they see me as somebody who can really move forward, even in the face of adversity, right? So, Dawn, at 6 months old, I had a spontaneous perforation in my intestine.
Hmm.
Spontaneous. Nobody knew. It caused a lifelong complications. So basically, I didn't have the language necessarily about resiliency at the time, but my body learned what that meant. It learned how to heal. It learned how to adjust. It learned how to help me move forward in life, in all the choices that I made. So,
It's incredible.
yeah.
So the people that are out there, Summer, Dr. Summer,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
are going through their own hard times. I mean, I had a childhood friend who just dealt with aggressive breast cancer,
yeah.
and I know she was within a year of finishing retiring. Of course, she works for somebody else, but where do people find the courage, the resiliency, the grit to move through hard challenges, whether it's health or a divorce or betrayal? How do we get through these things?
You know, I love that you use the word grit. And the reason I love that is for me, grit stands for growth, resiliency, intention, transformation. Grit is amazing, right? And so we all have that. It's how do you internalize, like, or touch on that internal strength that you have? How do you touch on that grit? How do you touch on that growth? Are you looking at those challenges that you face as mistakes, or are you looking at them as gain wisdom? So a lot of it is that shift, right? It's that mindset and heart shift. And it's true. It's there. Like you've got to be able to, understand who you are. It's reflection. It's taking time to understand how you move forward, not just as the person that you were once before, but with a new skill set, a new mindset, a new heart set, right? And so, what does that look like for you? What does that growth look like for you? That growth isn't just because you had a misstep, That doesn't mean that it's done, it's over for you. That means you learn, you've gained wisdom, you move forward. So when you have that understanding of growth, resiliency, intention, transformation, that grit, there's a mindset that goes along with that, a heart set that goes along with that. So let me explain. So let me give you an example. My professional path didn't look like I envisioned it. It just didn't. I envisioned myself, having tenure somewhere, working at a hospital, working for an office. I mean, I've done all kinds of things where I would stay there, I would have a great career, and I would be able to look back and retire and do all these things going, oh, yeah, that was the path. That was the path. But that path did not look like that. That path didn't look the way I planned. But does life ever look the way we plan? We hope that it does. We take the steps towards that plan, but life happens. So are you going to get set in? Are you going to ground in and say, oh, I can't budge? I don't know what to do if something changes? No, you're going to allow yourself to move with that change. But what does that mean for you? How do you do that? How did you do that effectively? What are the steps that you're going to take that actually work for you to move through change, to understand there's an opportunity for growth, to understand there's an opportunity to reflect and say, I can do this in a different way. I can do life in a different way. I can create a path in a different way. So let me get back to the story. So, did I plan for my professional journey to look the way that it turned out or that it continues today? No, not necessarily. I I planned for that office job to move up, to have tenure somewhere. But what happened was I moved countries. I moved to, different countries. I lived in a different country. I shifted roles numerous times. I changed jobs numerous times because of the moves that we made every 3 to 4 years, right? Did I expect any of that? No, I didn't. But for a long time, for me, because of a choice that I made to marry somebody who had a job, who had a profession in the military, I did not expect to marry a Marine who moved us every 3 to 4 years. And I look at that and go, oh man, you can't help who you fall in love with. But at times I thought, gosh, am I achieving the goals that I really want for myself? What does this look like for me? Am I going backwards? Am I going forwards? What does that look like? And am I attaining the things that I want for me at the during the at the time or within the time frame that I wanted them to happen? And so I looked at that going, oh man, are these multiple missteps? And I had to many times pull up those bootstraps and get up
Mhm.
and go, all right, how do you do this again? What is this going to look like for you? What is the job that you want? You are here now. You are in this new location. You're in this new city. You are in this new, you're within this microculture, having to maneuver through this microculture that has expectations of you. So, what does this look like for you? So, what I eventually realized on was that I wasn't running from things. I wasn't having these constant failures or missteps. I was learning how to really transition with more purpose, with more clarity, with more intention, with more courage. That's what that was all about. So, because my plan didn't work out as I initially envisioned or initially had planned it out, it still worked out, but in a different way, right?
Yeah,
Have you
absolutely.
have you as somebody who's had a profession in the Air Force, as an entrepreneur, as a radio host, you've been through transition. How did that feel for you? Did
Oh
you have to
gosh.
shift mentally? Did you have to have a heart shift? What did that look like for you? What was the courage that had you get back up, reevaluate, readjust, and move forward? What steps did you have to take?
Yeah, those are good questions, Dr. Summer, because when I was asked to be a radio talk host, I'd been a podcaster before that, and it just felt terrifying to me because I'm an
Mm,
introvert, or an ambivert, and I
yes.
had to get really uncomfortable being or I'm saying it backwards, comfortable being uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
then I just kept doing it. And then it started, as I kept going on and on, it became easier and easier. Absolutely. Good example.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there's so much to that, right? And we each go through our own journey. Just if we get fixated on it happening one way, that's where we get stuck. So how do you lighten that load for yourself? How do you have grace for yourself? How do you re-strategize in a way that's going to be healthy and helpful for oneself, for yourself? So another transition in 2023 of November, I got neuroendocrine cancer in my lung. And it was like, oh, it forced me to literally stop. Now, if you know me, Don, I'm going, I'm producing, I'm programming, I'm like doing all these various things to get whatever my next step is, whatever my next job that I want to do, whatever the business that is that I want to create, whatever the program is. Nope. Neuroendocrine cancer stopped me in my right where I was at. So at that point, I spent time transitioning. I spent time reflecting. I spent time trying to breathe, literally trying to breathe. When I would walk up a flight of steps, and mind you, there's two flights, a landing and another flight, or a flight, a landing, and a flight of, another flight of stairs, just to walk upstairs to my bedroom from the living room, I would have to stop because when you have part of your lung resected, you can't breathe quite as well as you like when you get out of surgery. So you're like, okay. So I literally took time to breathe, to relearn how to breathe. And so that was tough. And let me tell you, the appreciation I had for breathing, for stepping, for getting up, for adjusting, just for my own health was another transition. How do you move forward? How do you move forward with courage, not being scared, not being traumatized, not being, and you think about it, you reflect on it, you learn that this was an opportunity for additional growth. Here was that opportunity. And so, we learn through every series of our lives with every different situation that occurs, right? Whether or not it's planned, unplanned, it's a surprise, like some of these things that have occurred in my life. It doesn't stop me though. It didn't stop me because I had some innate resiliency, learned resiliency, and a mindset where I wanted to continue. And so during even the transition of my entire life or the journey of my life, I got a master's in human services. I worked with communities. I learned how to be a program developer. I then got a doctorate in clinical psych. So when you say, as I worked as a psychologist, as a doctor of clinical psych, I'll always be a doctor of clinical psych. It's just how do I put those skills into practice? And as a consultant for businesses, that's what I decided to do. I put those skills into practices. I built my business with courage and understanding of how did I want to build this business? What did I want it to look like? What does it take to rebuild after all these different transitions and disruptions? You've got the skills. Pull on them, lean on them, use them. And they're not just skills that, you know, you've learned from one different aspect or area of your life, they're over a lifetime. Dawn?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when you were diagnosed with cancer, and I remember being in pure disbelief. I remember 9 years ago when my mother had metastatic breast cancer, and I was in disbelief. But if I'm to be fair, I know I've learned a lot of personal growth, even though I haven't dealt with cancer. I've dealt with
Yes.
autoimmune disorder, a really dangerous one. And it's amazing how we can sit there and take cancer and you bust through everything you do, what you need to do, the chemo, the radiation, therapy, the surgeries and such. But what about the person who struggles and can't get that mindset, Dr. Summer. They maybe they feel a little bit victimized and they're trying so hard to power through it. What is your suggestion to those to those people?
Reach out for help. There's no shame in reaching out for help. And I want to really make this clear. We have talked about is one of the things that I did during my professional journey. I went and did a drive for life from Washington, D.C., all the way to California. And I talked to veterans who had been to war. And I asked them, and I created programs for veterans. And I asked these veterans, how did you get through it? How did you get through these traumatic situations? And they said, I connected with my peers. I connected with my veteran peers, connect with people, connect with groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, on social media that have been through something similar. And there are a lot of people with ideas that will help support you, groups that will support you, and there are other folks, professionals that will help support you. So take the opportunity to reach out. That is growth. Being able to reflect and say, wow, I've been through some major things and I need some help with these transitions. It's totally okay. That's totally human. And so try it. Try it. Because once you get that help, whether or not it's from a group on Facebook or somebody on TikTok or somebody, where you can get that support system in place, that's extremely helpful. And you'd be amazed. I have a friend who has stage 4 cancer right now, right? And so she's on all kinds of TikTok groups. And she goes, gosh, I didn't know about that treatment, or I didn't know about, some of the things that they were doing. I get to ask my doctor now about A, B, or C because I just wasn't aware. So you'll get great ideas. You'll get great exchanges. You'll get the support that you need. You'll get local support. So there are all kinds of ways in asking for help or finding support. So take that opportunity. That's also a growth opportunity. So, I also want to transition this into a business for entrepreneurs. When you find that you're just exhausted, feeling burned out, emotionally distracted from your own business where you once had passion for, think about getting some help. Think about getting a virtual assistant because guess what? You might think, oh my gosh, this is going to be, too expensive. But in actuality, it's going to be really helpful because getting somebody who's helping you with that admin, who's helping you with that support is going to get you back in front of the people you need to be back in front of your clients, your potential clients, spending more time with your clients. So as a business and leadership consultant, I run 2 programs. I run a virtual assistant program and I also run a cross-generational mentorship program because I want to be able to support systems and people within those systems to create more healthy and happy cultures.
That's a lot. Now, when you had to slow down because you're getting medical treatments, did you feel frustrated? And if you did, how did you deal with that, Dr. Summer?
No, I actually didn't, Dawn. I didn't because I'm a I'm constantly on the go. I'm constantly developing, constantly moving, constantly doing things to move forward, move my business forward. And I thought, this is a wake up call. You need to listen, Summer. You need to stop and reflect and think about, were you listening to your body? Were you understanding the needs of your own personal wellness? And I stopped and said, okay, this is the universe. This is God. This is that, divine spirit, whatever you believe in, telling me and, basically slapping me in the face and saying, it's time to take a break. It's time to stop and be okay with it, and to absolutely be okay with it. And I think a lot of times we're really hard on ourselves and we don't take a break, or we get lost in the extreme situation we get in, not even extreme, say everyday situations we have in life, taking care of kids, doing a business, program planning, doing systems like, running kids back and forth to school, making sure everybody's taken care of. And
Mm.
yet, somehow, in all of that, we forget to take care of ourselves. And I think sometimes even those professionals, a professional in the mental health, world, who's worked in that world for years, uh, I forgot. I forgot to take care of myself. And you had mentioned, an immune disorder. I'm going to go back to a story that, again, another opportunity for me to listen to myself and make changes. I was working some years back in a hospital. And at the time, they issued, all of their department heads phones. And they told us, you are not allowed to turn off your phone. You are a department head. You're not allowed to turn off your phone. I don't care if it's a day off. I don't care if you're getting a massage or haircut or whatever. Don't ever turn that phone off. I didn't turn that phone off. I was in there for shift change at 6:30. Sometimes I was at my office at 1:30 in the morning because my staff couldn't get authorization for a client to be, admitted into the hospital. So I would need to come in, talk to the insurance companies to get them to authorize days for my potential clients to get admitted into the hospital, which was critical. Like that's emergent care. And yet my staff was having a hard time doing that. But when I pick up the phone, I know what I'm talking about. I'm direct. I can, tell them what we're seeing, what we're observing and their history. And boom, we get 3 days authorized, you know, and yet I was put in a position where I was having to hire staff that, didn't have the experience, that I was spending lots of time training. I was having to come in on off hours, couldn't turn off my phone, and my body said, "You're done. You're done. You are on 24/7." And what ended up happening is I woke up one day with one of my eyes completely red. And I thought, oh, what did I do? Did I get something in it? Is it irritated? I went to the doctor, the eye doctor, and they said, nope, that's not what it is. I said, what is this? They said, you need to go see a rheumatologist. Or yeah, I think it was the rheumatologist. And I said, okay, is there something wrong? They said, yes, you have an inflammatory issue here. Like this is not, an infection or anything of that nature. I had no idea what they're talking about. And I said, okay. So I go see the rheumatologist. They said, lots of testing, lots of testing. It ends up being lupus.
Mm.
Never had I had lupus, but stress, exhaustion, it was being triggered. My body was being triggered. And again, that was an opportunity for me to listen and change course, which I did. I started teaching at a junior college and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I started teaching psychology classes, human development in psychology. It was fantastic. So sometimes those things that occur in your life, they're opportunities for growth. Many times, most of the time. But are you listening? Are you listening? Are you taking the opportunity for reflection, to stand still, to listen, and to shift, to do a shift for your life that helps you in both personal and professional health? Because if you're not well, the things that you do, whether it's personal or professional, aren't going to feel as good, aren't going to be as good because you're not actually taking care of yourself. So there are times, Don, where we need to stand still. We need to do some reflection. We need to take an opportunity to evaluate what's going on in our lives that could definitely stop us in our tracks. Yet, are they things that are going to stop us completely, or are we going to continue to move forward and grow? And those are
Yeah,
questions we need to ask ourselves.
well said. Dr. Summer, that I'm glad you talked about reflection, slowing down, balance, and such, because in America, we are conditioned to go, 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 go.
Yes.
Talk on the exhale. That's hard for some people. I think it's very hard for women because we think we have to do it all.
Yes, there's a lot of that conditioning, right? And it can be cultural, it could be just familial, it can be, the expectations of others. And when we shift a lot of times to stop and to think about ourselves and to have grace for ourselves, people are like, what happened? What's wrong? What are you doing? Because they don't understand the changes that we want to make ourselves healthy, to help improve our health and wellness. And so it will shock people. It will take them off guard because they haven't seen you doing it. And so that takes boundary setting, that takes strong conversations, that takes being uncomfortable. Just like you said, Dawn, when you started being a radio host, I had to put myself, you had to put yourself into a position where you felt, where you were uncomfortable to become more comfortable. And look at you today. How many years has it been that you've run the show?
Well, I think we both are going on over 8 years as podcasters and me as a radio talk
Yes.
host. And I wanted to talk about your podcast too, because you're really out there helping women, bringing on some really intelligent, powerful women to help other women.
Yes, absolutely. So with the podcast, the Core Women podcast, it's a space, it's a safe space for strong conversations, important conversations from women from all different backgrounds, all different areas of the world, around the world. It's 8 years, almost 400 episodes in the making, and it's given an opportunity for women's voices, for more women's voices to be heard, to be understood, to learn from one another, to connect with one another, to just thrive, right? And I've gotten over the years women saying, wow, this is my first podcast, or this is my first opportunity to share my story.
Yes,
Or I've had people just break down saying, I've never disclosed that. And I'm not sure why I did.
because they
And
trust you.
because it's a space where I've established safety, where it's exactly that, an opportunity to talk about the important transition that people have been through, both personally and professionally. So each guest, I ask them a personal question because, people want to know about the person first, and then we can get into their professional background. And that's what we do on the Core Women podcast, because it's so important to have spaces like that. I don't get paid for that. I don't, it's my give back. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something where I think, what's funny, Dawn? I had a question the other day, and some man, I got connected, and I got introduced to this person, and he said, I want to be on your podcast. I said, it's great. That's great. But guess what? It's for women. He said, I'll put on a wig, and I'll put on these things. I said, nope, I'm sorry. It's for women. And so it's not that I don't have conversations with men, and there are all kinds of men in the background, let me tell you, that have been advocates for this podcast, for my podcast. So I have appreciated them so much, and they have been women allies. They have done so many great things for this podcast, referring, connecting me to so many people. I thank the men out there as well. And so for men, I've had different conversations, maybe on different lives or on Instagram or on different platforms, but it's not going to happen on the Core Women podcast.
Because it's called the Core Women Show. Oh, I just love what you're doing. And I
It's
know
awesome.
we're down to our last minute.
Okay.
So what I would like to do is thank you for all the years of empowering women and being such an inspiration,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Summer, because going through what you've gone through, and you're so humble about it all, the courage and the willingness to move through it so fast and brush the dust off. I really applaud you. I really
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
I really do.
Well, you know
And
what? I want to leave you all with this last line. So, bouncing back in all these situations wasn't the miracle. Learning how to build forward was. So, if you
yes,
can learn how to build forward, that's what you will need to think about and lead with.
yes. And so we're out of time. I will leave all the information how to reach Dr. Summer Watson. Thank you so much for listening in, Dr. Summer Watson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.